Hey, hi, how are you, friends? I am so excited to be back with you. I hope to get this all done in one take, but if not, then I'll actually have to edit this video, which I don't usually do, but that's okay. I wanted to give you guys an update of what's been going on, and as you can tell by the title of this video, I want to talk to you guys about chronic illness treatments, mental health treatment, medication withdrawals, medical gaslighting, finding the right team. This is really important. The last few months have been extremely difficult around here. Um, some might know I've been trying to figure out some health stuff the last couple years. Right now, for the pain disorder, it's fibromyalgia, but we haven't ruled out some other things yet. Um, in the last few months, everything has kind of come to a head. We moved to Washington earlier this year, and I had been without a doctor until August, and now I have a doctor. And um, so if I look down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. I wrote a lot of this down. It's been a fuzzy couple of months, but I wanted to give you guys like a brief background and update, and then where this conversation needs to go from here, because there's a lot to unpack. So before I go any further, though, I need to give a trigger warning and a disclaimer. So, trigger warning, we are going to talk about suicidal ideation. I'm going to refer to it as SI. We're going to talk about self-harm. If that comes up, I will call it SH. We are going to talk about withdrawal as well as medical gaslighting. So if any of this bothers you, if you're uncomfortable, if you're worried about yourself, please take care going forward in this video. Know that those conversations are going to happen. And a disclaimer, I am not a doctor or a medical professional. I am a retired marriage and family therapist, so I'm a retired mental health professional. But I am doing this for informational purposes only and to share my story. I am not your mental health professional, your doctor. This is not a therapy session. This is just me sharing some information with the world from a personal and somewhat professional perspective, but it's informational only and my experience. And finally, I am not, and I need this to be very clear, I am not anti-medication. I am not anti-psychotropic drugs, psychotropic medication at all. But I am also not in favor of just taking whatever is thrown at a situation if you don't have a full understanding of what's happening. And that's going to come up later as we go through my story. We have to know ourselves. We have to know what we need, what's going on for us. So, a little background, and I have had depression at different times in my life. I have had anxiety my whole life. I do have a history of SI as well as just some really hard stuff that happened. I am diagnosed with complex PTSD as well as OCPD, and have some social anxiety, which is ironic because I actually teach a social skills and anxiety class for teens, which is actually a blast. And I teach them based on my background of dealing with social anxiety. So it's been a lot of fun. But in 2019, when I was postpartum with my daughter, things got really bad. And I just felt unsafe in my head. I wasn't enjoying her early days. It took a while for us to find a place that I could go because I was on state insurance, but we finally did. And we settled on Zoloft. So I went to therapy, but we also needed that medication piece. And I firmly believe that I needed it at the time. I believe that it came in clutch because I was having some passive SI. It wasn't anything active. I wasn't trying to act on it. There were maybe a handful of incidents where in the middle of an anxiety attack, a panic attack, I got so overwhelmed that I could have potentially been a danger to myself. But for the most part, it was very passive, but it was something I wanted to get ahead of. So we started the Zoloft, and it was the only one I was comfortable taking while breastfeeding. Plus, my husband and I were thinking in 9 months, we might try for another baby. In a year, we might try for another baby. Little did we know, we were already pregnant with baby number 2 at the time. That's a whole nother story for in and of itself. And so we started this and things kind of turned around. Again, I don't know how much of that was the Zoloft and the fact that I got pregnant again. How much of that was just my body changing, preparing for another baby? I don't know. But close to the end of pregnancy number 2, things started to get kind of overwhelming again. They got really bad. I was on modified bed rest. I was sick all the time. I was in pre-labor basically for the last trimester with nothing happening, and it was overwhelming. So we upped my dosage. We actually doubled it, which was more than we should have done. But that's what we did. We doubled it, and I was like, okay. And it took care of the things. I was back to enjoying my daughter, enjoying the rest of my pregnancy. And the symptoms quieted down again. So there we were. But throughout 2020 and 2021, after I had my son, I had a tubal. We had a lot of neurological symptoms come up. We had a lot of pain symptoms come up. I was diagnosed fibromyalgia, and we were just trying to figure out the neurological and GI stuff. We were just trying to figure out what was going on. And piece by piece, we've been putting it together. So fast forward to August of this year, about 2 months ago, I finally got in with a GP here in our new hometown, and I explained to her my stuff that was going on, and we discussed switching me from Zoloft to Cymbalta. I decided that since SNRIs are usually prescribed more often for pain disorders and not just mental health stuff, but there was a mental health component that I was comfortable trying it. I had been sick so much and tired so much, and there were people that swore by the energy it gave them. So I talked to my doctor, and we agreed. So we started weaning off the Zoloft and onto the Cymbalta. And for a couple days, it was fine. I still had pain. That never went away. But I was a little more clear-headed, a little more energy, a little more motivated. And then I crashed. It's a decision I regret now, but I'll get more into that in a little bit. But overall, these experiences here reminded me that you have to have the right team behind you. In Oklahoma, I had a great NP who was really prioritizing the concerns. We got the pain managed with some, between the Zoloft, we didn't add anything new except a muscle relaxer and some supplements because I didn't want to be on a lot of medications. And I appreciated her. I appreciated her looking more into the neurological symptoms, which were scary because the first time they happened, I felt like I was having a stroke, which I wasn't. But I had a great team. I had a great NP on my side, but I didn't feel like most of my other, the people I was referred to were not. The neurologist I was referred to kind of just brushed off my new headaches like it was nothing. At this point, I wasn't really seeing a gynecologist anymore, and the GI doctor I saw was helpful, gave me my Crohn's diagnosis, but we didn't get to spend a lot of time together because then we moved halfway across the country. But at first, she was even kind of dismissive of some things. So my new GP has been a little more open, and she got necessary referrals to me like that. I have a GI referral who I already met with, also amazing. That GI referred me to a rheumatologist as well as a dietitian. We have labs done. We have radiology appointments. We have it all. So this team is actually listening to me. They're actually caring about what's going on, and they didn't leave me to suffer with the Cymbalta, which we're going to talk about more of. But this is where medical gaslighting comes in and choosing the right team. There is so much misinformation out there about medications. And I thought I was safe because I had taken psychopharmacology. I had taken biological psychology. I knew what SNRIs did in the brain, I thought. And the fact is, we are not given enough training. Doctors, therapists, psychiatrists either are not getting enough training, or they're just kind of ignoring what's out there sometimes. And sometimes they don't even know that they're ignoring what's out there. So this isn't always their fault. I want to say that. But When medical gaslighting comes in, it's a big issue in the course of treatment. My experience with it has been mostly when I was really young. When I first got Crohn's symptoms, when I was younger and dealing with anxiety, when I first had my big bout of anemia, as well as when I was a kid. And I just would let things go. Doctors would be like, no, it's not this, it must be this, and that means we can't really do anything. I would just let it go. And I just accepted it as normal. Or I just felt like if the specialists weren't going to deal with me, why should I trust anyone? I have yet to have a neurologist that actually has taken me seriously. And I have only had one GI that took me seriously from the word go. And that's the one I have here. So this is a big problem with the course of treatment, because my hesitations in the past could have impacted me negatively going forward. Maybe it has changed the course of my treatments and my illness development and what happened after I gave birth and how my body changed. Because it can take people so long to find a medical team they trust or people who will listen to them, it protracts these illnesses along the way, which is why I'm thankful for the team I have now. Again, I've only met with them a few times, a couple of them. I haven't even met my rheumatologist yet or the dietitian, and I haven't done the radiology exams yet. But every person I've talked to has been very professional. They have listened to what I've had to say. That includes the nurses when I've had to call and get things reported to my doctors. It's been amazing. But this is an issue with the course of treatment, not just for me, but for others. Doctors need to believe their patients. If I was doing therapy and my patient was like telling me about hallucinations or how depressed they felt or they were anxious, and I brushed it off, that would make me a terrible therapist. And doctors have to realize the same thing. So in the midst of all these scheduled appointments going on, I had just started taking Cymbalta. We spent a week getting off the Zoloft and onto the Cymbalta because I didn't want to abruptly stop one and start the other, so we made it a slow transition. And at first, I was fine. But after the Zoloft started leaving my system and I was only on the Cymbalta, things got scary. Honestly, after a couple days, like I said, I had more energy and more clarity, and then all hell broke loose. I have literally been to hell and back the last couple of months between what the Cymbalta was like plus the withdrawal. So I had a little bit more energy, but I was still in pain. The pain never went anywhere, like, at all. My body was like, haha, just kidding, you're going to be in pain anyway. Then I became moody and irritable. I was snapping at people. It's just been rough. Let's just say that. I was snapping at people. Then the SI started. It was very passive at first, some intrusive thoughts here and there. Then the obsessive intrusive thoughts started. And the obsessive thoughts ended up leading to a low mood. I had a low mood. I had no motivation. I started having nightmares. I was having night sweats, insomnia. I have PMDD. So it was like a PMDD episode on steroids. It was horrible. I will take my monthly PMDD, hopelessness, night sweats, and bad dreams over this constant night sweats, nightmares when I was sleeping. And I literally woke up in panic attacks based on these nightmares instead of just waking up being like, oh, that dream sucked. I had insomnia. I couldn't really leave even my room without having a panic attack. Even having to go out and make dinner, go out and do things outside of my room, my bed felt like a safe place. Then I began having hallucinations. I actually only had them the last day that I took it. The last couple days that I was on it and then transitioning off. I had a couple of visual hallucinations the night before we decided to discontinue it. The day we decided to discontinue it, I had a couple of tactile hallucinations. And then that evening, I also had a couple of auditory hallucinations. I knew they were auditory because I knew what I was hearing, and I knew that it couldn't actually be, I knew they were hallucinations, the auditory ones, because they could not actually be things that I could actually hear in my environment, because of what I was hearing. Plain as day, clear as day, not just in my head. So, by the way, 0 out of 10 stars. I don't recommend hallucinations to anybody. It was horrible. So like I said, have a history of depression. I went through a depressed period my sophomore year of college where I didn't sleep for 3 months because either I had insomnia or when I did sleep, I would have nightmares. So then I would choose not to sleep because I didn't want to have the nightmares. I have PMDD. I have had severe postpartum depression. I had 2 extremely painful pregnancies. I've had mastitis. I had uh, the 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 pandemonium hit our house. I would rather do all of those things all over again for myself than do what I've been doing the last couple of months. I would not wish the pandemonium back on my children again, but I would rather go through it again for myself physically than what I've been through the last couple of months. And then what I went through with the withdrawal the last couple of weeks where we're still in that. This is the first day that I'm able to like sit up, interact with people, and really start to do more work. This is the first day I've been able to do work. I've been able to sit up, I've been able to interact, I've been able to do things for my family, but this is the first day I've been able to actually work. A little bit last night, but the line was drawn in the sand a couple of weeks ago. I had to go pick up the increased dose of my Cymbalta. We weren't technically on a therapeutic dose, at least my doctor said we weren't, but then the pharmacist said something different and all my research says something different, but whatever. Like I said, there's misinformation out there, you guys. The misinformation is why I ended up on an upped dose of Zoloft, and so there I was. I had to go to the pharmacy to pick up this medication. I had run out. I knew missing a dose would literally almost kill me because I missed 1 dose during this process and I thought I was going to die that day. So I didn't want to miss anything. I did not want to feel that awful, but I was terrified. I was so terrified I told my husband I could not drive myself. I could not be trusted behind the wheel of a vehicle. And the entire way there, I was clutching the side of the car because from the time we got in the car to the time we parked, all I could think of were the intrusive thoughts that were just one right after the other. Just open the door, just jump out. You can't handle this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. This is awful. I hate feeling this way. This is overwhelming. We were on a busy street. It was just open the door, jump out, and it's over. So I paid attention. Every time one of those thoughts came, I looked at a sign. I listened to my kids in the back seat. I held onto the door a little tighter. We're literally blocks away from the pharmacy. You guys, this was all in a matter of less than 5 minutes. And by the time we reached the pharmacy, I knew something had to give. I could not keep going. So I went in to get my medication. And even though I had been on it for about 4.5 weeks, the tech said, "Hey, do you want to talk to a pharmacist about this? I know it's not a new medication." And I said, "Yes, I want to talk to a pharmacist." So I told him about the concerning symptoms. I told him about the SI. I told him about the hallucinations. And he basically was like, "Yeah, you shouldn't be taking this at all. But if your doctor thinks you need to go on a higher dose, don't do it longer than a week if it's not working, if you're still in this place." By the time I got back to the car, I knew that was it. There was no way I could last another week on this medication. There was no way I would survive this medication. And I told my husband what I had thought all the way there, and I cried all the way home. And he took the night off work, and I curled up in my bed and I sobbed. I called my doctor. I told her, I told the nurse what had been going on. And so they immediately took me off of Cymbalta. And they had someone call to check on me. They had someone come in to not come in, but they had someone call me to assess. Was I safe? Was I going to do anything? And I told them no. I told them my husband was there with me. He was making sure everything was okay. That I just wanted to be done. So they said, yeah, you can. We were going to go back to Zoloft. Originally, that was the plan, to go back to Zoloft. But partway through the withdrawal, I decided that was just not going to work for me. Okay, sorry for the drastic lighting change. We had a battery die, and then I had to teach classes, and now it's much later. So, where I left off, I told them, I was safe, but I did not want to be on Cymbalta anymore. I absolutely just, I didn't want that anymore. Originally, like I said, they approved me to go back onto Zoloft. And as I was doing my research into SSRIs, into SSRI withdrawal, SNRI withdrawal from Cymbalta, and started experiencing the effects myself. One night when I was in the middle of the worst of it, which I'll describe in a minute, I told Michael, I said, no, I'm done. I'm not going to, until we have all my health stuff figured out, until we can completely rule that out as a last straw, I'm not getting back on a psychotropic medication. Like, no. And so he said, okay. And I sobbed some more. So there I was. My husband was off work. I was in the worst place I've ever been in, mentally and emotionally and physically. And weight had just kept packing on. Even as I tried to change things, it just didn't matter. And with the Cymbalta, it got worse, which I could not figure out how until I learned that that's what it does. And so as I did my research, I recognized the dangers of stopping cold turkey. I don't recommend that to anybody. And even I kind of stepped it down for a couple of days. I did a rapid taper, which I also don't recommend to anybody. Do the research, talk to your doctor, talk to the pharmacist. That's what I did because I was not safe in my own head. Like, I had to flip a switch. But all those things to say, don't quit cold turkey, it's horrible, they're absolutely right. Don't do it. Like, it has been a horrible 2 weeks, or week and a half, that I've been going through this process. The withdrawals have been more physically hell than the drug itself, than the Cymbalta itself. Mentally, I have been in a much better place, mentally and emotionally. I have not been snapping at everybody. I am still a little bit irritable, but that is something that they say will get better over time. Mentally, I'm in a much safer place. I have not had SI. I have not had hallucinations at all since stopping, and those ended almost immediately. Physically, though, I have never been in a worse place in my life. I've never felt worse. I told my husband, except for the prolonged nature, the way that my body feels, how I would rate it is mastitis, this Cymbalta withdrawal, and COVID. Those are the three worst incidences of my life. So yeah, for me personally, I'd rather have COVID again, and it was awful. COVID, I went to the ER with COVID. So this process has been literal hell for me. This has included nausea, headaches, body aches, what they call brain zaps, which the first few days, I just had one just then. When I turn my head, I have one. The first few days, the brain zaps, I literally felt like someone was electrocuting me from the inside out. Now they're just kind of annoying, and they happen constantly. Anytime I move my head, anytime I move my body, they just happen. But I also had confusion, brain fog. I was clumsy. I was unsteady on my feet. We're over a week and a half through, and I'm still having issues. The brain zaps. I'm not as nauseous anymore. I don't have as many headaches. My body still hurts, though, like I've been dragged through the mud. My mind has been clearer, but today, this week, have been the first few days that I've been able to like sit up for prolonged periods of time, get out of bed for prolonged periods of time, where I can actually like make food for my children. My husband worked all day Monday, and I made it through the morning, and I managed to make lunch. But by the time I was finished making my kids lunch, I was so thankful they had a nap time, because I literally almost passed out just making them what essentially is the equivalent of a turkey and cheese sandwich with their like little vegetables and fruit sides. Like, it was a horrible experience. The brain zaps are still here, like I said, almost every time I move my head, almost every time I move my body. But my mind is super clear now. I actually feel more like myself the way I was before I gave birth to my daughter, more close to who I was before all of this started. And so I'm pretty sure I would rather have all those high pain days, all those days where I can't even lift my head out of bed, but I'm not dangerous in my own head. I would rather have the brain zaps than be where I was mentally. And each day is getting easier. Last night I was able to do some work. Today I've done some work. I'm in a lot of pain right now. I'm just trying to get this video done so I can lay back down, because I just got done. I did a lot of work this morning. I taught my classes this afternoon. Luckily last week, thank God, I don't even know why, but a couple weeks ago I just decided on a whim I would take last week off, and I scheduled it ahead of time. Like, I told my classes, like, we're just going to have a break that day. Thank God I did that, because I would not have been able to teach last week. I was literally close to death, I felt like. So I don't know what put that in my head. God must have put that in my head, like, hey, you're going to want to just take that time off so that you don't forget, because it's horrible to forget you have a class, and I don't want to be that person. And so I'm getting back to where I was. And, you know, I was at a point earlier this week and the end of last week where my very limited energy had to go to, when my husband would go to work, being able to take care of my kids, making sure the house is still standing, make sure my kids are alive. And we had a lot of time in mama's bed. We had a lot of time with independent play, because I was just in a bad place. And thank God for my husband's flexible schedule, that he was able to kind of, you know, hang out with the kids and pretty much just be the best dad ever, which is not hard for him because he just naturally is. And they got plenty of playtime while I got some rest time, and we're finally getting back into our good routine, into the routine that we had been establishing before August, when I started this whole debacle that I had been trying to keep up at the beginning of August. And we're able to do more and more each day. I've also learned a lot in doing my research about SNRIs, SSRIs, about learning things that I didn't know about them before. I've come to the conclusion that I might not actually have a pain disorder at all. I definitely have Crohn's. I definitely have something neurologically going on that they can't figure out, because both of those were happening in my early 20s, in my teens. Those were happening before any of this started. But I might not have fibromyalgia. I might have a joint disorder. We don't know yet. We still have x-rays we have to do. But again, those issues started before I was pregnant with my daughter, before I started taking the SSRI. And what I thought was fibromyalgia actually could have been too much Zoloft in my system. And another thing is what my new GI told me about Crohn's. Some of my symptoms really could have been Crohn's related, but we didn't have a diagnosis yet. We didn't know that that's what was going on. We didn't have all the tests back yet. And so I told Michael, I'm not going to take another psychotropic drug until we get my physical health sorted out. And there's a time in my life where I would have had that differently. I would have said, no, we're going to get my mental health sorted out. And I absolutely am in favor of getting mental health sorted out. But the problem is, I think that after I was about 4 or 5 months postpartum with my son, and we were never going to get pregnant again, I think my body sorted that out itself. I was no longer postpartum or acutely postpartum. I had both babies out of my system. My body was leveling itself back out again. And I was on this extremely high dose of Zoloft. And so why am I bringing this up? Why am I making this video? Why did I write the blog post? Why does this even matter? Why am I having this conversation? Why am I bearing my soul? Because believe me, this is very difficult. I know there are people in my life who are going to watch this video and not understand a word of what's coming out of my mouth. They're going to have an opinion on what's been going on. They're going to have an opinion on what I should have done differently and how I should have done it differently. And you know what? That's fine. I bring this up though because while I got some training, like I said, I took psychopharmacology classes. I took a biological psychology class, and I did not fully know what these drugs do within the brain. I didn't fully know what it was like to get off of these drugs. No one trained me for what happens when a client has to discontinue an SSRI, an SNRI, an MAOI, or a tricyclic antidepressant. No one prepared me for what happens when I have a client who needs to switch their medication. No one prepared me for what could happen about discontinuation syndrome or withdrawal. I was not prepared. We were told, oh, they might be uncomfortable for a little bit. It goes away quickly. It's fine. That's not what the research shows. So we are being grossly uninformed, and our doctors are being grossly uninformed. And that's not a crack at the medical system or the psychology or the therapy system. What that is a sign of is that we have to do better. Those of us in a position of power, of authority, we have to do better for our patients, for our clients. I would have wanted to know what I know now when I was actually working as a therapist, when I actually had clients starting and stopping these medications like they were candy. No, that's not what we're doing anymore. We're no, because we're now having an open conversation. This is now an open dialogue. I also didn't know how uninformed doctors were. I thought that my lack of information still meant the doctors, the psychiatrists, the psychologists knew more than I did because I was just a therapist. And I know how demeaning that sounds. If you're a therapist, please don't take this the wrong way. I was one of you. I am one of you. But there's that level of education disparity. So this is your call to do better. This is your call to know better. This is your call to research. Whether you are a LCSW, an LMFT, a behavioral therapist, whether you're a psychologist, a psychiatrist, an MD, an NP, an RN, I don't care what level of education or training or what field of medicine you work in, this is your call to do better, to know what your clients and your patients are going through, because we were pretty close to not even having this conversation at all. That's just the fact. That's just the truth of it. And I'm not trying to say that to be overly dramatic. I'm trying to say that because that's what this drug put me through. That's where I was. It's my opinion now that maybe when doctors feel that something has worn off and maybe we just need to switch medications or up the dosage, maybe we need to pull back. Maybe it's not a relapse. Maybe it's not just because the medication is, we're not tolerant to it anymore. Maybe we need to let the patients start listening to their bodies. Maybe it means that there's too much of something in their system. The fact is, maybe it's not that we've hit a tolerance level. Maybe it's not that something has worn off. Maybe it's not that we're relapsing. Maybe it's that the patient has too much serotonin in their system, too much norepinephrine. Maybe their brain is trying to do what it was designed to do in the first place, and we are now inhibiting it, and they don't know what signals to listen to anymore. That could be the case. It's not always the case. I absolutely believe that I needed Zoloft when I first started taking it. I absolutely believe staying on the smallest dose was a really good idea until I needed to go up. And I know for a fact the first time we dealt with it, I needed to go up. I was in a place where I was relapsing at right around, the end of that third trimester. What I also think is that as things started to shift and I wasn't really relapsed anymore, I never hit a place where I was a threat to myself anymore. I wasn't anxious like I was before. What I did was I started feeling the signs of a serotonin syndrome, or the mild form of it, but it was protracted, and it's not what they would call that. They've only shown it in 2 studies for a period of 6 weeks. We're now a year into it, so I cannot call it serotonin syndrome. That's not what it was. I don't know what it was, but I do think it's related. I do think it was just too much of it in my system. I do think it was that I didn't need that level of it anymore. Maybe what I needed was to go back down a dose. I don't know. Maybe it's not a problem. Maybe our biggest problem here isn't under medicating. Maybe our biggest problem here is over medicating, and we're not talking about it. Also, there's so much emphasis, and I believe this is important. There's so much emphasis on the SI that can be caused for those that are 25 and younger. Those underdeveloped frontal lobes, those underdeveloped frontal cortexes who finally get this burst of energy, but they still have those negative thoughts and what that does to them. We have this big emphasis on the intrusive thoughts in the SI that we don't really talk about the people who are older than that threshold who have this high level of SI. And maybe it's because I struggle with PMDD. But I can attest that even though we think we're exempt from that, we're not. I'm 33 years old, and this was a big issue. This was scary. I've never been like that. Even with my history of depression and SI, even with my history of thinking of ways that this could happen, I've never been actively where I was the last couple of months. I'm 33 years old, so for any of you that are over 25 and you're starting to notice this, please know yourself. You are not immune from it, and talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist, talk to your therapist. Get a good team. That's why we need to go back to having a good medical and therapy team around you. So another reason I'm having this conversation is because I want to take back my body and my mind. Crohn's may play a part in my story now. Whatever neurological condition that we just cannot for the life of us figure out may have a claim on my body. Whatever joint disorder that I may or may not have might play a role in my body. But I am ready to fight to have more clarity, more control over what I can control in my body. I am ready to fight to be at home in my own head again, to have my head be my place again. I want to know that I am not a danger to myself at all anymore. And for the last week and a half, I haven't been. I've been sick as a dog and felt like I was run over by a Mack truck and then reversed over again. But I haven't been a danger to myself. I managed to get excited today about something silly and goofy that, but I got excited, and I haven't been excited for 2 months. I published a book last week, a book that I've been working on all summer, not last week, sorry, in September, last month. And when I got my copies in the mail, I should have been excited. I posted a reel as if I was excited, and I felt nothing. As a matter of fact, I felt bad about myself, like I should have done something better or different. But today I got excited about something. 2 days ago, I got a disappointing news. I submitted a short story. Again, during this whole time, this experience that's been going on, I wrote and submitted I wrote and had it edited and beta read and all that, and submitted a short story for an anthology that was rejected 2 days ago. And honestly, it's the biggest blessing that I could have gotten, because I got disappointed immediately. But you know what I didn't have? I didn't have SI. I didn't have self-deprecating thoughts about how I'm a failure and how I'm just the worst and I should never write again. None of that crossed my mind. I just thought, this sucks, this is disappointing, but it's not the story for them. And that was actually a really big blessing, to know that I can handle negative feedback again, and to know that I'm safe in my own head. Also, I've already lost some weight. Yeah, crazy. I haven't even really changed my diet much the last week and a half, and I've been barely getting out of bed for the last week and a half, but I've already lost weight because these things hold. I don't even know what they do to make you hold your weight, but they do. It's out there. It's in the research, and I didn't know that. But here we are. My body is already starting to become what it was before. The medical field calls medication withdrawal discontinuation syndrome. especially when it has to do with SSRIs or SNRIs. They don't call it withdrawal because you're not addicted, you don't have cravings, so you can't withdraw from it. But let me tell you the harm here. When we want to distinguish this from an addiction, what happens is we diminish both the person who deals with addiction and the person who's dealing with withdrawal from their SSRI. Because what happens is we make the person who's having discontinuation syndrome feel like they've been brushed off by the medical community, because honestly they have. They really have. We make them feel like they'll get over it. It's just a natural part of things. And it is. But what we don't tell them is how hard it's going to be and how much they're going to want to go back to that medication to stop feeling like this. We don't tell them, we don't validate how truly hellish this experience is when we do that. But also, it discounts the addicts who are only told the only reason that they stay is because of the craving, when in reality is withdrawal is terrible. It makes your body and your mind feel horrible. And just as we want to go back to the medication to stop that, they have a craving for something that would stop that. And I didn't fully understand that before this week. No, I was not addicted. No, this isn't like heroin. Although, fun fact, in one of the groups I'm in on Facebook, someone said they would rather be withdrawing from heroin than their SNRI. And that was pretty telling to me as a person who knows that heroin is one of the hardest things to withdraw from for most people. But, whatever. That's none of my business. So, this isn't an either or thing. This is a both and. It's not about, it's not an either or, it's a both and. And maybe the medical and mental health community could treat everyone better, whether they're on medication or recreational drugs, if they understood that. Again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not claiming to be. You guys can do the research. You guys can talk to your doctors. This is just my experience. This is why this discussion is so important. I believe I needed Zoloft when I started taking it. I believe that the psychiatrist who prescribed it to me, we had great conversations. I met with her a few times. It's not like it was just a one and done thing. My doctors, after that were very willing to, my NP and my OB were very willing to listen. The other specialists they sent me to were just, I have an issue with specialists. Hopefully this round goes pretty well. It's going better already, so here's hoping. But that's why this discussion is so important. That's why I'm making this video. That's why I wrote the blog post. We have to destigmatize these things. The funny thing is, the word destigmatize isn't even seen as a real word. When I type it into a Google Doc or my blog post, it puts the little lines under it that says, hey, you spelled this word wrong. No, I haven't. I haven't spelled this word wrong. And they can't come up with another way because that's the word, but we don't even recognize it as a true word. But that's what has to happen. We need to destigmatize mental health issues. We need to destigmatize medication, talking about medication, chronic illness, and treatment. And the only way we're going to do that is by sharing our stories. The only way we're going to do that is being open, even when we're terrified, even when we know that our family and friends might judge us, even if we know that maybe we won't get all the support we need from the people we thought we would. Maybe we'll get it from somewhere else. But the only way to do that is to start having this conversation. So what does this mean moving forward? Well, first of all, it means I'm going to apologize. If you contacted me anytime in the last 2 months and didn't hear back from me in the way that you thought you should, or immediately, or what have you, yeah, probably that's true. And I'm sorry. I'm trying to get back to everyone who has messaged me. I am trying to get back to answering those things, but that's where we are. As for everything else moving forward, First, this means no more psychotropics for me, at least not until we figure out all the health stuff. We know that it's none of those things causing that issue. I can't stress this enough. I do believe Zoloft was right for me when I first started, and then it just wasn't anymore. Then it was the time where I needed to come off of it, and we just didn't realize what was going on. So I think I was just left on it longer than I needed it. And then just as in the last couple of months, the last couple of weeks, more rest, grace, and self-care for myself, especially as we zero in on what's actually physically going on in my body. As we get more lab tests back, more doctor's visits, I will be sharing that journey more and more. And then as for Soul Cadence, which is now named Soul Cadence Creative and not coaching, I am refining us back to the basics. I'm bringing myself back to the basics of what the business God actually has placed on my heart is. No longer being afraid, no longer thinking I need to do this the way everyone else does it. This is what God has placed on my heart. This is what we're going to do moving forward. I'm going to bring us back to the basics of creativity, fulfillment, home and family, and burnout and chronic illness. The focus is going to narrow in on content creation, writing, and running the Soul Cadence Village membership, which if you've not heard of that, it is the place for burnt out, overwhelmed moms to have connections, resources, and coaching to embrace the chaos and live fulfilled lives in the day-to-day. It's wonderful. There's a lot going on over there. It's about to really ramp up. So if you want to be a part of that, let me know. There are links in the description below. You can reach out to me on Instagram, all that. I'm also going to be focusing on motherhood. I'm going to be reclaiming the lost time stolen by this medication the last 2 months and the other issues that maybe the Zoloft had been causing for the last year. I'm going to reclaim time with my children. And I might have chronic illness, but it's not going to steal my time with my family. And that's the beauty of running my own business from home, right? I get to work and change the world, and I also am present with my kids, and I'm teaching them compassion for people who are different, people who have different bodies, people who have different health issues, people who have different abilities. And I'm also focusing on my son. We've gotten him early intervention resources, and I know how lucky we are to have access to that, how blessed we are, but for his own well-being. And I am here for all of his meetings, his doctor's appointments, the boo-boos, the owies, for him and my daughter, who is super smart, off the charts crazy. So all of that, this is just the beginning. I feel like even though the last 7 weeks has been hell, like I've been run through the ringer, I feel like God has really been talking to me in the quiet moments that I've had. It's been really working on me, even in the hard moments, the moments when I was barely hanging on, or I thought my body was ripping itself apart by the seams. God has been reminding me that He has been with me through it all, and that I do have a plan and a purpose through all of this. Not that you have to. If you are going through something like this, you don't have to make the best out of it. You don't have to see the silver lining. I know there's a lot of people out there who put that emphasis on always being positive. No, this sucked. This experience sucked. For me, though, I really do feel like there were moments that God was in it with me and reminding me. So we're getting back to a schedule of content. Hesitantly, we're moving forward. It's going to take a while to build back up, but I do plan to post a blog every Monday, most Mondays, but I would like to get to every Monday. I also plan on posting a YouTube video every other Wednesday, maybe working up to every Wednesday. We'll see. For now, we're trying to work up to every other Wednesday, and then one Saturday a month as my self-care Saturday. Also, one Monday a month is going to be Maven Mondays. I'm going to reach out to the person that I was hoping to talk to in October. I let September and October slide because, hello, you've just been here for the whole story. So I'm going to reach out to some people and hope that they're still on board. But we're bringing Maven Mondays back. And then if you need me on the daily, I'm over on IG, unless we have a blackout again, like we did a couple weeks. I don't know. It's been a couple weeks. We had blackout Facebook, Instagram. Speaking of social media blackouts, if you don't want to, lose out on what's coming, if you don't want to miss out on the new content, sign up for the newsletter. If you're a mom, join the membership, the Soul Cadence Village, because this is just the beginning. I have a lot coming. I have some videos coming because I had already posted blogs that I didn't get to make videos for. I have blogs and videos coming about how to stay creative during your flare-up days or the hard days, how some homeschooling stuff I've been working on. I have some stuff coming about how to be motivated when we don't feel motivated. I'm also going to be sharing glimpses of this diagnosis journey of what's been going on there. What are we actually figuring out? And as I completely come off these psychotropic drugs, how much pain am I in? Is there something else that's the cause of this pain? Does it have to do with the Crohn's and possibly the neurological or the joint disorder, or is it its own standalone thing? We're going to figure all that out, and I'm bringing you along on the journey. I'm not a vlogger though, so I planned on reading you some of my entries, like today was a bad day, so many intrusive thoughts, really hard day, I just don't know anymore. I'll give this a vault to 2 more weeks. Yeah, that was October 2nd. We did not give it 2 more weeks. I don't even know what day of the week that was. But the next day I stayed in bed most of the day, and I'm pretty sure, 2 days later we stopped Cymbalta altogether. So I said I would give it 2 more weeks. 2 days later I was off of it. So I don't vlog, so you might not catch the day-to-day things in staying up to date with what it's like coming off of it. But I am a journaler. The other thing that's coming is lots and lots of book launch stuff, because while all of this craziness was going on, I released, and now that I am back in my head, I am so excited. I released the, my light is all crazy. I released the Creatively Fulfilled 31-Day Guided Journal for Chronic Illness and the Home and Health Organizer. These are both available in paperback on Amazon. If you want a printable PDF version though, that is available for sale as well on my new shop. I also published a journal which is half blank and half lined, and I did this because I'll find some of November. I actually really like to draw and write, and maybe without showing what I actually wrote. I just like having space to doodle. I'm doing Inktober right now, so being able to utilize that. These are all available on Amazon. All of these available on Amazon with my other books. They're all there. I updated my Amazon author profile last night, and I have a book that is supposed to be released in December. I'm almost done with the first draft. Beta readers are getting it at the end of this month. I'm working on drafts 3 and 4, or somewhere around there. I don't know what draft number it'll be, but for Nano. And then I have plans to finish the publishing process. So I have another book coming. So lots of launch stuff coming, and it all needs to be celebrated. Now that I can actually feel emotions again that aren't negative, I'm so excited. I want you along for the journey. If you're interested in those books, the Amazon links as well as the paperback, or the Amazon paperback links as well as the PDF ebooks will be linked below. The membership will be linked below. The blog post will be linked below. My Instagram is linked below. Everything's below. So if you're not subscribed, I don't usually say this in my videos, but what we're going to be talking about around here moving forward, we are going to refocus back to creativity and fulfillment in motherhood, home, and chronic illness, but also burnout. I'm going to talk a lot about burnout. If that sounds like something you're interested in, click that subscribe button, stick around. There is more content coming. and more consistently. And the blog has content, the membership has content, the newsletter, it's all there. It's all growing. Come be part of this community with us. And I will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.